Hey, hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna discover a new series. Well, not new series, but we're gonna change something about this series called Five Nights at Freddy's, or its nickname, FNAF. Yes. Today we're going to do our own version of the timeline and put a version of the wheel. Here's the start. We're going to start some rules before we get into that. Rule number 1, we're not going to cover all the games. Rule number 2, we're not, of course, gonna cover the explanation of all the animatronics. Rule number 3, we're only adding the game's original lineup of animatronics, but add couple bonus ones. 2 or 3 at least. Oh, and of course, rule number 4, we're gonna see if you pay close attention. Now that out of the way, let's begin. In the late 70s, Henry and William create a company called Afton Robotics. In 1972, they built a restaurant called Fredbear's Family Diner. William Afton's son, Michael Afton, is a few years old. Probably, I don't know, 5 or 6. During the building of Fredbear's Family Diner. Anyways, the new and established Fredbear's Family Diner, of course, is built for 2 animatronics, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. Both a spring-lock suit or activated of themselves. One which later on Springtrap, and one which later on theorized to become Golden Freddy. Anyways, the restaurant is successful and many had their hands, but Henry built 3 other try to build 3 other animatronics in the years to come, which would be the Freddy's Fazbear Pizza animatronics. Anyways, they get a phone call about someone wanting to work as security guard at Fredbear's Family Diner. Obviously, Henry agreed. So did William, but this man finally headed to the restaurant and parked his car in the diner. His name was, of course, Brian Steven. Brian Steven, of course, wanted to work at the Fredbear's Family Diner as security guard at night. So, they decided to hire him as security guard. So, the dude who we know as Phone Guy, I'm gonna call him, of course, Fred George. Anyways, Phone Guy, or Fred George as he's called in this timeline, decided to give him a phone call of the instructions and how to deal with the animatronics. And this explains the story of Five Nights at Freddy's, Fredbear's Family Diner. Anyways, the security guard watches the cameras of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. Anyways, the dude known as Phone Guy gives him a call. He then says the following: "Hello, hello? Oh, good. I'm glad you started your first night. Anyways, by now you might notice that Fredbear and, of course, his pal Spring Bonnie are not alone. There's about to be built prototypes for the new restaurant, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But you might notice the puppet is in there somewhere. Of course, if you check the cameras, you might see Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, you might see the puppet, and of course, for no explanation, a third Springlock suit, a version of Foxy. We don't know how it got there, but I'm sure he survived against it. Anyways, goodbye. And that's when he, of course, hang up the phone. Security guard was checking the cameras to see if Fredbear or Spring Bonnie move. But, of course, he finally checked the cameras, and there was the puppet. He tried to wind up the music box, but finally checked Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, but noticed that Spring Bonnie was missing. Checked the cameras, and there was Spring Bonnie. Of course, zoom in on his face behind security cameras when he's about to wind up the music box. The music box winds down a little, and of course, the iconic Pop Goes the Weasel when the public tries to attack you appears. He tried, of course, opening the door, which of course he went running around the restaurant trying to find the puppet. But he heard a whisper, a voice that says his name, his very first name. And then he whispered, "I'm coming for you." He looked behind him and didn't notice what the whispering came from. Then he heard a laugh started, and then he saw that the voice came from the Spring Foxy animatronic. He started looking at it, but it didn't move. It was standing there creepily. And then, of course, the Spring Foxy animatronic was gone. And he had no idea where the Spring Foxy animatronic went to. Anyways, the Spring Foxy animatronic started to talk. And it started to say, "Arr, hello, lover. You may call me Spring Foxy." Anyways, the security guard walked away until the Spring Foxy animatronic was gone. He looked everywhere, but finding out that he thought he was in Pirate's Cove. Turns out he was wrong, and the prototype, not finished yet, Foxy was still standing there, not being active yet. Anyways, he looked around, and of course, seeing a stage inside of a back room. And he seen a prototype Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. They weren't active yet because Freddy Fazbear's Pizza wasn't open yet. Anyways, Fredbear, of course, when you looked, Fredbear was also off this stage. And the Spring Foxy when he went up the stage, was behind him. And of course, it jump scared him. He went to a coma for a few seconds. Then he saw an animatronic grabbed him. He looked up, and of course, he saw, the spring body animatronic. Put him to a safe room. But when he checked to see what spring body was, he went inside the safe room, and spring body popped out of nowhere and started chasing him. He chased him all around the restaurant. Meanwhile, the Spring Foxy animatronic, the Spring Body animatronic was back to its stage. Used to start stabbing him. Then he clumps to the ground. Meanwhile, he's about to get up, and of course, he survived the night. He goes to his second night by checking the cameras yet again, but this time, he got them line up the music box with no way around. He started running out of power, but the power shut down. He was too scared to realize what he'd done. Anyways, it hit 6 a.m. and he finally survived against the Fredbear and Spring Bonnie animatronic. He almost was gotten killed. Anyways, he gets to his third night. He then says, and then passes his fourth and fifth night, but then gives up afterwards and says the newspaper says that Fredbear's Family Diner will still be open for a few more years until we get a new restaurant. Anyways, by his fourth night, he gets, of course, this time, he gets to pull a trick on the animatronic. What kind of trick? By making his, of course, animatronic costume. He builds a spring body costume to word the trick. However, Spring Body starts to recognize him, and what does he do? Simple. He snaps his spring lock costume, but it malfunctions and he falls down to the floor. The security guard, of course, with the spring lock costume malfunction, becomes Shadow Bonnie. And of course, he's no longer there because he's now Shadow Bonnie. Instead, an unknown person, Night 5, gets to work there. And of course, Fredbear's Family Diner gets put on hold for a while. Meanwhile, in 1975, William Afton builds a new restaurant called Chico's Party World with a new animatronic, Spring Chica, and of course JJ and Springard, aka entered before he looked broken and a little bit. Anyway, they hire a new security guard to work the night shift. The security guard noticed that JJ started to move. She started looking around, and she realized that JJ was no longer there. She disappeared out of nowhere. She tried to look around for something, but couldn't find her. Anyways, disaster happens for a new security guard. After finishing her night shift, of course, she also has another job where she celebrates a little girl's birthday party. But after the birthday party was celebrated, the little girl was missing. But no one realized that. They now realize that she was, of course, had missing signs everywhere to try and find her. And with a child now not being clear where she went, Chica's Party World that closes down for 1978 for another restaurant, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Which then competitors of Fredbear's Family Diner. Anyways, Fredbear is moved to the new restaurant. And of course, the animatronics there of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza include Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Stolchies, and Pirates Cove. And of course, Balloon Boy and Fredbear. Anyways, they entertain the children and it also becomes a successful restaurant. The missing child, who was never discovered before, entered this place. Well, of course, after it was successful on the first day. But a mysterious man called Daniel Roberts sneaks back behind her. And just like that, the girl is finally gone. She's now dead, and said her soul then decides to hunt JJ. So now we have two characters haunting each animatronic. One haunting Shadow Bonnie after his plan to wear a spring costume has failed, and another haunting JJ. Anyways, 1980 happens. And of course, William Afton builds a few new animatronics for Circus Baby's Pizza World, and then opens what we see in 1983. Yeah, we know what happens. Elizabeth Afton gets too close to the animatronic and, of course, gets to haunt the animatronic Circus Baby, turning her eyes to blue to green. Yeah, we already know that. Anyways, the Circus Baby's Pizza World now closed. We know what happens next. Those animatronics get to be underground by Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals. Anyway, still in 1983, and of course, the brother of the Foxy Mask, Michael Cawthon, hunts down his brother until him and his friends go way too far and throw into the mouth of Fredbear, causing the bite to be free. This closes down Fredbear's Friendly Diner for good, and he's in a coma for a while until he starts to have nightmares. Anyways, this leads us to Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Anyways, 1985 happens and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is still successful. We know what happens next. William Afton takes the lives of Charlie, Freddy, Charlie and takes the lives of people who controlled Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, as well as Fredbear, who's now Golden Freddy. Anyways, the restaurant then closes. So, what happens next? 1987. The prototype animatronics, now the later animatronics, get to be improved by reusing by the new improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. By doing new ones, the toy animatronics. Anyways, the toy started to become weird around adults. But the previous mentioned security guard, now Shadow Bonnie, actually puts, of course, fear chips inside the toy animatronics. That explains a lot better why the toy animatronics are trying to hunt down the narc guard. Anyway, when that happens, Jeremy Fitzgerald gets his head bit by Mango, as known as the Bite 87. The new improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza gets shut down, the toy animatronics gets scrapped. The winter animatronics get rebuilt into the iconic classic animatronics from 1993. Michael Cawthon poses a security guard named Mike Schmidt, and this leads us to Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Survivor gets few nights, but gets fired from temporary animatronics and odor. We often revisits the place, dismantles the animatronics, but okay. So during the late 90s and early 2000s, Michael Cawthon, Brick Butter Foxy Mask, gets to work there, he survives, gets scooped, bails out injured, and of course, finally survives his death. So let's say in 2005, about 2005, two of the previous security guards, brothers, gets to agree to finally have a new place and actually find a way to build new animatronics in a junkyard. And this brings us to Five Nights at Freddy's, the Lost Ones. Anyways, the title suggests they all get lost and of course know where to find a way to build new animatronics. They succeed though at making, of course, damaged versions of the previous animatronics that I mentioned before. You know, the ones from Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Anyways, those stick for a while. Anyways, we know what happens next. We have Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This brings us to, well, FNAF 3. So, 2023 happens. Their restaurant, Fazbear's Fries, is open. We imagine now Springtrap haunts Fazbear's Fries until the building gets burned down. He escapes. And of course, this leads us to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. The salvage animatronics, now by Michael Afton, we know happens. This place also gets burned down as well. And of course, we see what happens next. William Afton then turns into Glitch Trap after being burnt. And this will set up Help Wanted and Security Breach. That was my rebuild timeline on Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh, bye now.